It's Sunday, April 15th, 2018, and this is the Product Mentor Talk. Today, we're joined by one of our mentors, Andrew Shu, to lead a talk on 6 tips and stories to help you execute a roadmap effectively. Andrew Shu is product manager over at Vega Factor. And for those of you who are joining us today, let me just briefly explain the format. The people you see along the bottom of your screen are mentors and mentees from the current session of the Product Mentor, where we pair people up all around the world in the area of product management to make better product people, better product decisions, and better products along the way. So everyone just wave hi, say hello, hello. All right, so that's how I know whose video I can see. Haha, it's a trick. And what we're going to do is just do some quick introductions. I'll tell everyone a little bit more about it. I'm going to start with the person closest to me. Who are you? Are you a mentor or mentee? Where are you? We'll start with Steven.
Hey everyone, I'm Steven. I'm a product manager at Tailwind, and I'm based in New York. And I'm a mentee to Kyle Wendling, who works at Foursquare, who's also on the chat.
Excellent. And we'll go over to Patrick.
Hi everyone, I'm Patrick Hoffman. I'm a senior product manager at Udacity, heading up the enterprise group, making sure that Fortune 1000 companies and such can understand the best of the cutting edge technology and how to get the most out of their teams.
Awesome. Kyle.
Hey, I'm Kyle. I'm a product manager at Foursquare, where I lead our attribution team that works on marketing measurement and location intelligence.
And over to Esley.
Hey, I'm Esley. I'm a product manager at a company called MBO Partners in Washington, D.C., and Andrew is my mentor.
And over to Ellie.
Hi, I'm Ellie, and I'm in San Francisco. I'm a mentee, and I work at Franklin Energy.
All right, and Andrew, quick intro.
I'm Andrew Shu. I'm working out of New York at a company at Vega Factor, where we help companies build better habits, and I am mentor to Esley.
Excellent. And I am Jeremy Horn, aka the Product Guy, and I'll be moderating here today. Do post your questions to the live chat on YouTube or over at our website at theproductmentor.com/live. Along the top of the page, you'll see the video. Along the bottom, live chat, and you can post your questions there. As the questions come in, I'll pass them along to our mentor in fairly real time. Those questions are a little bit off topic, a little bit more generic. I will still ask him, but I'll save those till the end of the talk. With all of that said, let me hand it over to Andrew to take it away for today's talk. 6 tips and stories to help you execute a roadmap effectively.
Thank you, Jeremy. Yep, so as Jeremy said, I'll be going over 6 tips and kind of lessons that I've learned to really help execute a roadmap effectively. To start, a bit about me. Currently, at this point, I've had 7 years of experience as a product manager, working at multiple startups, working on things like personal finance, home valuation, and different program management at different places. Before that, I was an electrical engineer in oil at different refineries. And currently, I'm at a company called Vega Factor, where we help companies and people build new skills and habits to create as effective and high-performing a culture as possible. So I'm going to briefly walk through those 6 tips to start. So the first is just noticing and using subtle difficulties as a guide to identifying problems. So, how do you notice kind of where identify different rough patches, so you can identify problems that you may need to solve with your team. Then move on to answering your own first questions. And this tip is a method to prepare for the most effective problem solving. If you're stuck, tip number 3 is to find a translator and to kind of help you get unstuck and speak the language of maybe the team that you're having trouble with, or finding someone to help you institute changes. And if you're really in a tough place, just really keep pulling to understand customer impact and how to persevere. And finally, teaching in story to really help coordination and help make things stick. And finally, just how important it is to be positive. So jumping into tip number 1, it's just noticing and using subtle difficulties as your guide. So this is going to be a story about just a site being down. So imagine that you're in a one-room office. You've got creaky hardwood floors. It's your first startup, and you've got no running water. And you're sitting at your desk going about your just daily business and what you have to get done. A message comes in. Oh, the site's down. That's great. So immediately Slack over to the engineering team. Hey, the clients say that the site's down. What's going on? As usual, silence. And you kind of have to follow up and say, hey, really, come on. And you get the response, we're looking into it. After some time, you kind of figure out what's happening. 20 minutes later, the problem is fixed and service is restored. So, following up with that, it's really, how can we make sure that something as simple as us knowing that the site is down before our clients do is really handled? And the response you get is, well, it's complicated. So, it's really, in this scenario, I asked, hey, can we make sure that this doesn't happen again? So after that, client reply just sent out, the fire's out, and I just returned to my long to-do list about what I need to do. And I hope that we retroed it properly and that this issue doesn't come up again. Looking 1 month later, of course, it happens again. The site's down. Oh man, seriously, again, what are we going to do about this? So it's just understanding now, noticing that this is a kind of consistent problem and we really need to treat it as such. And so what I did was blocked off multiple hours to problem solve it, set up a meeting for all the parties, and really started spending the time on this kind of more subtle difficulty that other people might think is okay. And so we really walk through what broke, how did it break, how are all the broken pieces interconnected for the site to have gone down. And so this is actually what we found in going through this deeper problem solving. Number one was if one piece of the application was failing, actually access to all of the application was revoked. Furthermore, the front end was actually running tests and sending false alarms to the back end. So we were getting false triggers for errors. And finally, the back end alert sending notes to the engineers that, hey, the site's having issues was not interpretable. So you can see the complexity of the issue and why at first the engineers, we couldn't actually solve it right away. And we weren't spending the time to do a deep dive on the retro, and they really needed someone to kind of facilitate this conversation. So what that resulted in was very definitive next steps defined and put into our work queue that gives a lot more confidence that this problem would not again occur in the future. And so this is just one example of kind of an overlooked difficulty that the more I've kind of worked in my career that I really want to notice. And so here's some more examples of things to just really take account of and realize that, you really should use these as notice these difficulties as something that does need to be fixed. So one example is people that you regularly shy away from speaking with. If there's someone that's difficult for you to talk with in a different department, if there's a key stakeholder that you have difficulty speaking with, it's actually really important that you get time and you spend the time working with them to kind of break down the complexities and why they're difficult to why you think they're difficult to work with, but not with them, of course, but then to solve that. Any persistent little thorn in your side that you're just hoping will go away, any problem without definitive next steps, any problem that you're hoping doesn't happen, or anything that you just find is a bit weird. But difficulties and just those subtle difficulties are a great thing to notice and then make sure that you're spending the time on. Tip number 2. So if you're jumping into now verbal problem solving, it's really important to answer your own first set of questions. So imagine that you're 2 months into Q1, you're sprinting towards the deliverables, and the strategy keeps changing. You're upset, the team's upset, how can we expect to deliver if we're just going to keep changing strategies? And the first questions that you kind of really want to ask or come to your mind are, what are you doing to leadership? Why are you doing this? Why does the strategy keep shifting? How can we ship if everything just keeps changing? And as you can imagine, this is starting off a conversation this way is not going to be productive. So instead, you should spend time answering your own first questions and think about, well, what are they doing? I would hope that they're trying to make the company successful. And so why does the strategy keep shifting? Well, they must have learned something new, seen something new, or noticed that what was planned is not working. So their goals have shifted, or their understanding of what can be built has shifted. And finally, how can we shift if everything keeps changing? Well, that means that we need to get the team to be more adaptive, perhaps more coordination meetings, changing up the sequence of work, but just to really stay on top of it in order to be successful. So having these kind of answers in your back pocket, hopefully you then shape your new conversation that you're going to have with that executive, with a leader. And what that looks like is the strategy's really shifted a lot lately, which is causing the team and I anxiety. I'm guessing this is due to you noticed something in the old plan not working, you found something better, or you learned something new. To help us adapt and really deliver on this client impact, can you help me understand what's changed? You have the conversation. This straw model really kicks them off to point out what errors that you might have listed actually, or an error in your beliefs. And it will really kick off them explaining to you what they've seen has changed and why they're changing the strategy. Better yet, if you can actually then create a straw model of the solution. So to keep us moving, I really believe that this is the new impact goal that I'm hearing from you. And this is how I'm going to convey it to the team. And finally, can we start, regular sync ups so that we can stay adaptive as a team, and I can continue to keep them informed on, the new goals and making sure that we ship and deliver on this impact. What do you think? So you can see how different this has shifted from the accusatory, like, hey, this isn't working, what are you doing, to a much more structured way to present both your understanding of the problem and the solution. So an application, just as a reminder, so if you're faced with a tough circumstance, someone's upsetting you, there's a difficult problem, write down your first questions and reactions, answer them on your own, and then use those answers to present your understanding of the current situation, present the potential solution, and really sync with your stakeholders on what's changed and what they think and how to make sure that you are delivering client impact. All right, so we've covered kind of just not shying away from what you find difficult, and in fact, using them as a guide. How to answer your first questions to drive productive problem solving. And if you're really stuck, this next one is what I found really helpful for kind of getting unstuck. So on a day-to-day basis, I'm usually feeling a ton of urgency, and imagine that we're a week away from release. And I look at Jira and I know we're not going to finish all of these stories. I know we're not going to finish all the features that we need to deliver. It's pretty stressful and we don't make it. And this kind of just continues. Like, I try a lot of different things with the team. So try and change how we estimate, try and change how we prioritize work, try and change the number of stories that make it into the releases. But throughout a lot of these different efforts, really not being successful after a couple of months of really dialing in each of our sprints to know that we can deliver upon them, whether due to volatility, different things being stuck into the queue, but we're just not making as much progress as we like. So one day off the cuff, I just start talking to an engineer. He's just sitting next to me, and it turns out I found a translator. And so I say, hey, I'm really stressed. And he's like, well, why? And I said, I know we're not going to deliver, and typically we're a bit late. We're always overestimating what we can do. And he just said, hey, I really understand. I get that you're stressed, and I understand your situation, but I actually don't know how to fix it. And he proceeded to kind of walk me through, here's the queue, here is what we've historically delivered, and I don't understand why I don't understand what we need to work on and why there's this extreme sense of urgency, but I believe you. And this was really great because it helped me realize, like, oh, I see. So in their circumstance, the issue is that the bugs aren't making it into Jira quick enough. We're not doing the QA as early in the process as we need to, so that the engineers can adequately plan for the amount of fixes or updates they need to make before the release. And this is one of the key things kind of holding us up. As well as potentially there's a new problem, which is that we're not doing a good job of conveying that a standard percentage of sprints needs to be planned and taken up for QA, bug fixing, and also having time set aside for these urgent requests that are just the norm, as opposed to, being something random. And I found that, really helpful. And I was actually reminded of another instance where, we were really trying to solve ownership for our teams. We were working on how do we restructure our teams to help them really own the problems. We'd done a ton of retros, and throughout that time, like at that point, our teams could name all of their issues, but we didn't know how to solve it. And it was great actually because our co-founder stepped in, who acted as a translator, and she interviewed everyone, and she helped everyone kind of understand how they needed to shift to start taking ownership, and in fact helped us drive that transformation. And that's why this is a really great tip, and it really hits home with me, because watching her actually need to step in and make these changes, not even the CTO being able to do it, was really just a great example of why you sometimes need a translator to get you unstuck. And in fact, I was really excited when I saw this happen. I told my wife, and I was like, hey, if you're ever stuck, you should go out and look for kind of someone else that can help you out. So how to know you likely need a translator. If you're constantly thinking, how do they not get this? I can't seem to get my point across. I can't explain what I'm seeing to other people in the most productive manner. Or we can name all of our problems, but we've been struggling to change these things for months. These are all great examples of looking for outside help. I think it's a really productive way to kind of keep moving. All right, so if all else fails, it's just really important that if you're in a really tough space, you need to pull and understand customer impact. So I think the way to kind of really highlights this for me is I was sitting at my desk one day, eavesdropping on a performance review right next to me. They're good friends, so it wasn't anything too nefarious. But so this is what the conversation was going like. So it was a designer and our co-founder, and says, I feel like I'm being micromanaged. And he proceeds to say, well, that's because you are being micromanaged. And they kind of had a back and forth. She's like, well, why are you micromanaging me? I always hit my deadlines. And his response was, yes, you always hit your deadlines, not the firm's or the client's deadlines. And, afterwards, after listening, I thought it was a really interesting conversation. And we did a debrief, and we realized that, if you don't want to be pushed or micromanaged, you need to pull. And what that translates to is we always need to be asking questions and helping each other focus on client deadlines and client impact. Anything related to that you don't understand, that is what's going to help you move forward and really deliver that impact. But it's not even just you. It's also, so it's you understanding where you need to understand the client experience to move forward, but also teaching that to your team so that they know when to pull and how to pull for this information so they can continue to make the best decisions to make sure that you're delivering. So how to know when you need to pull. So anytime that there is lack of clarity on how the impact to the client is going to be delivered, what their experience is, lack of clarity around when the timeline for that delivery is. I constantly ask the team, hey, are we confident that we're going to deliver these items? What's your confidence level? And just trying to teach, if you're not feeling confident, that's when it's really important to seek more insight on what we're delivering and how and why it's important. Because as you understand those pieces of what's being delivered, you can prioritize what really needs to be built and what doesn't. Anytime you're blocked, when you see holes in your logic, and then of course, lack of consensus with all stakeholders. Next, so if you've done a great job problem solving, what I've found that really, really sticks is always just making sure to teach in story. So normally every Monday, our team gets together for a kickoff meeting. We sit in a room, some people call in on the TV, and we talk the timeline and features coming up in the next week and the next 4 weeks. One particular Monday, invites needed to be sent to launch a client that Wednesday. So we went through the standard meeting, and we said, hey, don't forget, we're sending out a bunch of invites to onboard one of our B2B clients this Wednesday. And on Thursday, I went to our other PM and I said, hey, did you send those invites? And he said, what invites? And this just completely blew my mind, because I work really closely with this person in particular. We had a great relationship, really effective at communicating with each other, very experienced at it. And I couldn't believe that, in all of our work together, as well as having gone through it on the kickoff meeting, that he would have missed sending it, and that we would have forgotten. So after a lot of deep thought around this, the method that I found that really avoids circumstances like this is actually telling the stories about what the expected experience is. And so how that might translate, instead of, hey, we've got to send invites on Wednesday, is something like this. So on Wednesday, our agent, George Clooney, is going to be presenting to 150 people at Universal Studios. After he presents, he's going to be directing them to register for our new amazing movie app. They're going to check their emails, and they're going to look for this registration link. And if they don't have it, George is going to have a terrible time. We need to make sure that this doesn't happen. He's going to be standing up there on that stage. Who's on point for this? And when I kind of tell stories for that in that manner, I have not seen people kind of forgetting, as opposed to, when you put up a Gantt chart or an Excel, things get a lot more difficult to execute. So knowing how and when to tell kind of client stories, really anything that has client impact. I try and do this for features when we're moving features in, planning them, putting them into releases. It's just really explaining, this is the situation the customer is going to be in. This is why it's important to them, and this is why it's important for us to deliver on this date. And if the date isn't important, then clarifying that as well. So trying to do that with features, trying to do that with releases, and also trying to do that with timelines. Finally, the last tip, just kind of throughout the arc of my career, this has really hit home more and more about just how important it is to be positive. So a typical morning for me, is kind of organizing the chaos and figuring out what out of all the things happening are the highest priority to get done. And I see that as I'm doing this prioritization, typically there's more and more pressure kind of mounts, and I move faster and faster. It's like, man, I have a lot to get done. And what I noticed was that throughout kind of early morning problem solving sessions with our agents. So at Vega Factor, what we do is not only do we teach kind of new habits and new skills to companies, and we do that via our agents going in and consulting with executives on strategy, giving these teaching lessons, and then really driving the changes through at these companies. So this is what our agents do. And so in the morning, I'm doing all my prioritization, getting ready to kind of kick off with the team. And in problem solving with our agents, what I notice is just how much more positive they are. And I remember distinctly why a story really stands out to me about that helped me understand how important it is to be positive. So one day, our co-founder steps out of a call with a client, and he's really upset. And it's the first time I've ever seen him upset. And I said, hey, what happened? Why are you so upset? And it turned out that a new executive had just come in on the call, and as they were problem solving, kind of took it sideways. But that actually wasn't what had upset him. What upset him was that the person taking the call sideways had really caused him to not be positive anymore. And he told me, I'm really upset because I know when I'm negative, I am less productive at problem solving with our clients. So that really highlighted how important it is to be positive. And then it really, in the mornings, like when I go and I work with the agents, it's really great to just kind of gain that positivity, and for me to notice that when I'm not as positive as I need to be as productive as possible at problem solving. So that's one thing that really helped me notice how important it is to be positive. And then the other is actually, so Esley and I were working on a roadmap, and she got it all knocked out. It was great, and she was kind of doing the mini rounds, just going through and working with different leaders at the company. And they were reviewing the roadmap, and so a week later we have our next meeting, and I say, hey, how did it go? And her response was, well, it didn't go great. No one really said anything except I got questions on, one of the items. So I said, hold on. So you presented the roadmap to all of leadership, and they basically approved it, except for they had questions on one of your items. And she said, oh, well, when I think about it that way, then yeah, I guess they did approve it. And it's really important that, I just enjoyed the flip of, if you just look at it from a positive light, you realize that you are having the impact that you're hoping for. And I really do believe, optimism is a force multiplier. So how do you notice when you're not being optimistic enough? If you're feeling like I'm bored, or you're looking at your list and it's like, man, I really have to do this. I have to crank this. I should do this, and just not really being as excited. As well as if you are feeling pressure. So pressure typically actually constrains your thinking, and you're not as expansive. You can't be as creative, and you don't problem solve as effectively. So ways to kind of combat this is, one thing I find very effective is ask yourself, how have I already achieved what I'm seeking to do? So in the case of the roadmap, for example, how have I already achieved what, trying to get this approved? Oh, wait, I think I might have. Oh, wait, I did get approved, and there's just one outstanding question as an example. Another is asking yourself, how I prepare for, speaking to executives is, what is a positive thing that happened last week? What would I tell? What's the story I would tell someone about what went well last week or this week? So it's what's something positive, what's an existing challenge that the team is facing or that I'm facing, and then what are we hoping to get done next week? So I find this is another productive way to kind of be optimistic and be ready. Another way to really stay positive is just visiting your clients and helping them. Listen to their story, feel that, see that your features really and what you're building is really helping them. It really does kind of go a long way to remind you of what you're doing and why you're building it. If you can't get access to the clients, work with the people who work with clients, or just, really look for someone that you find super optimistic at your company. All right, so recap, 6 tips to kind of execute a roadmap well, or kind of deal with delivering product in a high volatility environment. Just notice what you find subtly difficult, and use them as a guide to problem solving. Before jumping into problem solving, make sure you answer your own first questions, form your own hypotheses of both the problem and the solution. If you're stuck, find a translator, find someone that's really going to bridge that gap to help you understand the situation, help you communicate. Just always persevere and pull and just seek to understand customer impact, because it'll really help you prioritize and help you move forward, to help things stick, to really coordinate your team well, teach in story, and then finally just overall being positive, because it really will keep you more expansive in your thinking and more effective.
Outstanding. Thank you to our speaker, Andrew Hsu, for today's topic of 6 tips and stories to help you execute a roadmap effectively. He's product manager over at Vega Factor. And as always, presentation will be posted to our SlideShare channel. And a big thank you from me, Jeremy Horn, the product guy, and everyone else who joined us today, and the product mentor. And don't forget, if you're interested in being a product mentor like Andrew to product people of all sorts all around the world, visit theproductmentor.com and sign up today. And also, if you're looking to fill a new product job with a great product person, visit our very own free-for-all job board at theproductjobs.com. And with that all said, thanks everyone for joining us, and I'll see you guys all next time. Bye.